Welcome to the Wired for Success podcast, your show for ambitious, mission-driven entrepreneurs who want to build million-dollar businesses without sacrificing their health, relationships, or happiness, who understand that in order to build their empire, they need a solid foundation, and that the more they are thriving, the more their business is thriving too. This show brings you the very best from science, self-development, and entrepreneurship to set you up for sustainable success. Hi, I'm Claudia Garbutt, the scientist turned mindset and high-performance coach for entrepreneurs, and I help you get wired for success. Now, before we dive into today's episode, I want to share something that has been an absolute game changer for me lately. As you might know, all your behavior is driven by two main components, your physiology and your psychology. So if your body is run down because you eat crappy food, you don't exercise, and you don't sleep, well, you can't really expect to deliver your best work. So that's the physiology part. Think of it as the engine that enables your work. If you don't take good care of that engine, it will break down eventually. On the other hand, even if you eat a healthy diet and you exercise 5 times a week, but you're constantly feeling anxious, overwhelmed, and you just can't break free from your negative thought spirals, again, you won't be able to deliver your best work. That's the psychology part of the equation. So whenever you're trying to create a profound shift in your state or a lasting change in your behavior, you will want to look at those two main components and figure out how to nudge them in the right direction. Both parts are essential and they are linked by intricate feedback loops, so you want to make sure you pay attention to both parts. But sometimes, one of them is just so much easier to nudge in the direction that you want it to go, and it therefore makes sense to start there. So let me illustrate what I mean by giving you an example. You know those days when you just can't seem to get into the groove? You're trying to focus, you're trying to be productive, but something is just not clicking. Yeah, I've been there too. A couple of months ago, I noticed that my energy levels were kind of low and I had a hard time concentrating during the day. And I wasn't quite sure what was going on. I hadn't really made any big changes to my routines. And I thought, well, it might just be a winter thing induced by, not enough sunlight or something. And funnily enough, that was about the time when the guys from Magic Mind reached out to me because they were interested in a collaboration. Now, if you run a top podcast, you get lots of emails from people who want something from you. So in the beginning, I was a little standoffish. I mean, who are those guys? To be honest, I hadn't heard of Magic Mind before. So I did a little digging and discovered that Magic Mind is the world's first productivity drink. And it has acquired quite a big following and lots of amazing testimonials from happy customers. Well, next, I had a look at the ingredients. And it sounded really good. A great mix of ingredients that support your energy metabolism and ingredients that help your body reduce stress. What can I say? It looked legit. And I mean, Joe Rogan had it on his podcast and the Kardashians are drinking it. You can't ask for more in terms of credibility, right? So the fact that they were interested in a collaboration was kind of flattering, but still, I hadn't tried their product for myself and I wasn't going to promote something that I hadn't tried myself. Since they got me curious, I agreed to test the product to see what I think about it. Now, you can either drink it alongside your morning coffee or you replace your morning coffee with it. I decided to drink it alongside my morning cup of joe. Now, call me a skeptic, but despite the hype, I didn't really expect to notice much. What I noticed pretty quickly, though, was the promised increase in energy level, which was awesome, especially since it wasn't like the coffee high that often makes me jittery and nervous because I'm quite sensitive to caffeine. It was more of a longer lasting energy boost without the caffeine crash. And after drinking it every morning for 4 days, I noticed an additional benefit. I felt alert, but very calm at the same time. Now that's awesome, right? I had an important interview that day and a lot of stressful things going on in my personal life, things that had me worried that I would not be able to focus and concentrate during the interview. But to my surprise, I was able to stay calm and focused, and the interview went really, really well. Phew! It's like my mind is clearer, sharper, and I'm ready to tackle whatever the day throws at me. So that's awesome. And honestly, being alert and calm is the best state you can be in if you would like to increase your productivity. That's the sweet spot of nervous system activation that you want to aim for. because this is where the magic happens, when you have enough energy and you can focus it. Because that's very important too, right? If you have a ton of energy, but you can't focus that energy, then you're just bouncing all over the place like a toddler on a sugar high. Now, what's the magic inside this little magic shot, you might ask? Well, let me break it down for you. So, Magic Mind is packed with all natural ingredients sourced from the best suppliers out there. We're talking about matcha for extended release caffeine, Bacopa monnieri for improved attention span and memory, ashwagandha for reduced stress and anxiety, and so much more. It's like a powerhouse of goodness in every sip. So that clearly was a case where it was easier to shift my state in the desired direction by going down the physiology route. And all it took was the addition of a delicious shot to my morning routine. Don't you just love those easy fixes? I wouldn't be sharing this with you if I didn't truly believe in this product. Magic Mind has been a game changer for me, and I know it can do the same for you. Whether you're a busy parent, an entrepreneur, or just someone looking to boost their productivity, Magic Mind has got you covered. I'm super proud that they decided to partner with me and sponsor this episode. If you want to experience the magic for yourself, you can get it at magicmind.com/wiredfs. That's magicmind.com/WIREDFS. And if you use the code WIREDFS20, again, that's WIREDFS20, you can get up to 56% off your first subscription or 20% off a one-time purchase. Trust me, it's worth it. And by the way, if you want to make the most out of this discount code, get the 30-pack because it's the best value. They're also one of the few companies with a 100% money-back guarantee, no questions asked. There's really no risk. So if you don't like it, they will just refund in 3 to 4 hours. Now, without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Wired for Success podcast, where we talk about all things science, self-development, and entrepreneurship that help you get to that next level of success in your life and business. My guest today is Robert Brill, the CEO of Brill Media, a media buying agency that focuses on precision advertising for business growth. The company has been honored 10 times across Inc. 5000 and Financial Times 500, and Robert is a member of the Forbes Business Council and Fast Company Executive Board, where he writes about improving user experience, business growth strategies, data targeting, local advertising, and white label media buying. So hopefully we can get to explore systems and growth strategies that work right now to help you all build those $1 million businesses without burning out. Welcome, Robert, and thank you so much for being on my show today.
Thanks for having me, Claudia. Appreciate it.
I'm looking forward to this. So, Robert, let's start with your personal backstory. So, why did you get into advertising and how did you end up doing what you're doing today?
Yeah, so 2 weeks out of college, I got a job at Universal McCann, which is one of the largest multinational ad agencies in the world. And I targeted my job. I knew I wanted to be an assistant digital media buyer, and that's what I'm doing. That's what I did then. Even prior to that, I had spent about 9 months working at Universal Music, doing what would now be considered social media marketing, but then was called guerrilla marketing. And I think I've always had a calling for advertising. I always paid attention to like movies and shows and commercials, and I really wanted to have an impact on the world in a way that was like interesting to reach and communicate with a lot of people. And so I felt like advertising was a good route to do that.
That's so interesting. I mean, what was it about advertising in particular that just called out to you? Is it the creativity or just reaching the right people, or what is it about advertising?
It's reaching a lot of people. It's being able to look at the world and say like, look, you may not know my name, but you've seen my work. And that was very simple concept was very appealing to me.
Right. Now let's talk about your real world experiences bootstrapping from $0 to millions in revenue. What did that process look like, and what were some of the most important lessons that you learned along the way?
Yeah. So the process was in 2013. I started the business. I had spent at that point 10 years working in advertising. So I've seen from a corporate perspective how advertising grows businesses. And just to set the foundational points here, when you have marketing is inclusive of a lot of different things: public relations, publicity, search engine optimization, etc. And advertising is one of those. Advertising in particular is when you spend money, you pay a publisher or any sort of owner of ad inventory to deliver your message. To deliver your message. And if you're not paying for the inventory to be delivered, then or the creative to be delivered, then it's specifically not advertising. It's promotion, it's marketing, it's something else. So I just want to set that level set there. So when you talk about advertising, when I started the business, I had spent 10 years seeing how large corporations, ConocoPhillips, Toshiba, PetSmart, Sony Pictures, Disney, Capcom, and others wielded millions and hundreds of millions of dollars to grow their business. And I thought there was an opportunity to help small and mid-sized businesses do the same with just less money, but the same prowess, the same knowledge, the same expertise. So I started my business and I quickly chickened out. I took a full-time job and I thought, okay, well, I'm not ready to deal with all the challenges of growing a business. So I think the first learning here is that I think turning on a business and making it successful happens in fits and starts. It's not a clear path. It's often not a clear path, even though I think in your mind's eye, it seems clear, but everything's going to be far more expensive and take far more time than you wish it will.
So true.
So I took this job. It wasn't the best job for me. And then by February of 2015, I was doing this full time, focusing on my business. So here's another lesson. Don't start 4 or 5 businesses at the same time, which is what I did. So one of the things I realized is that I knew so much about advertising, the ins and outs of the digital ad buying world. I knew the challenges really well. I knew there were 2 key challenges. Number one, I didn't really have a good sales pipeline. Like I didn't know how to sell because I saw a lot of companies spend 6 to 12 months wooing a potential target, a potential client, and there's a lot of politics involved and advocacy and all that. I knew I just wasn't cut out for that. I didn't know how to do that. I'd never done that type of work in my career. So selling was challenging. I also wasn't even good at like really talking and being able to speak to the experience that we had in a way that was meaningful and motivational for the people that I wanted to work with to spend money with us. So collectively selling was challenging for me. The second challenge was usually in advertising, you're spending lots of money up front and then you get paid 30, 60, 90 days later. I was like, okay, if I spend $100,000 on an advertising campaign, I can't float $100,000. I don't have $100,000 to float. So, and holy cow, what happens if they never pay me? Like, it'll just be a really bad situation. So I was like, okay, I'm just not going to deal with that. So I went off and started 4 other types of businesses: an influencer marketing firm. I wanted to be an influencer, which is crazy to think about. I started a social media marketing firm, and I started a consulting firm to help 8 companies and agencies implement advertising tools that I understood really well. And I started those in parallel. And, there were fits and starts along the way, as you might imagine, and none of those worked. And the collective reason why none of those worked is because none of those were in my zone of genius. Didn't know how to be a consultant. I hadn't spent enough time in the influencer marketing space to be quite the expert in that. I certainly wasn't an influencer, although the highlight of my influencer career was Holiday Inn Express paid me $2,500 once to make a Vine video. So that was really exciting for my influencer, career. And I had, no real competitive advantage, nor a real passion for social marketing, social media, like content posting, creating brand strategies, all that stuff. It wasn't really my passion point. What I realized over time, that my zone of genius is digital ad buying, which, not surprisingly, is a thing I did for 10 years, over 10 years at that point. So once I focused my efforts on the thing I knew best, my zone of genius, that's when everything clicked into place. I started to be able to overcome the sales challenges. I figured out ways to sell, and I figured out ways to not to take massive financial risks, which is very simple. We ask for prepayment up front before we run advertising campaigns. And that solved the issue of having to float $100,000 or whatever the number is before clients pay us. So the moral of that story is I went the long way to discover that my zone of genius is the thing I'm going to be best at, the thing that I have the unfair advantage on, and the greatest level of competitive advantage. So it's obvious looking back on it, but it wasn't obvious at the time. So anyone listening, I would say that, like, focus on your zone of genius. That's probably the thing you're going to be best at, and the thing you're going to be able to do the best for your business with.
Right. That makes total sense. And as you said, some of those things, they are so obvious in hindsight, but as you're going through them, it feels like you're lost somewhere and you just can't find the right way
100%.
forward. Now, what did it feel like to finally hit that $1 million revenue milestone?
It felt amazing, and it actually unlocked new client relationships because I was just telling everyone, "Hey, we hit $1 million," and yeah.
And how long could you really enjoy that moment, or how quickly were your thoughts like, "What's next? How can I make?"
enjoyed none of it. I didn't enjoy. One of the benefits, one of the things I really admire about my wife, and we were dating when all this was happening, was she's able to help me see earning $1 million in a year is a big win. So I don't mean specifically that, but in general, the small wins, like when there's a good day, when like the stock market is up or crypto market is up, like take that for a W and enjoy that. When a client renews, even if it's for a small campaign, take that for a W. When a client complains and then you realize that the source of their complaint is actually a decision that they made, not we made, take that for a W. That's a sign of a strong team. So I've always been focused on, there were a couple years where I told my wife, I was like, oh, I don't have a real business yet. I was doing hundreds of thousands of dollars in advertising, and I was like, I don't really have a real business yet. And she's like, no, brother, you have a real business. Like, what are you talking about? So I never really could. It was always hard for me to pause, reflect, enjoy, and take that. So one of the things I've learned over the years, now 10 years into this business, that I can actually take stock of the good days, and the bad days will invariably come. Don't worry, there's no shortage of them. So take advantage and enjoy the high of the good days. So earning $1 million was good, but I was hustling, man. I was like, okay, how do I turn this into a lot more?
Right. Yeah, that's something I see in a lot of clients as well. And the mindfulness and just appreciating the small things, that's a skill that you can learn, and it's a skill that you can practice. And then it helps you stay, well, happy, healthy, and productive. I like to say. So it's definitely something that we should all pay more attention to. Now, when you reflect on your journey so far, is there anything else that you feel you would do differently if you had to do it all over again?
Yeah, it's hard because, I've watched way too many time travel movies, and I know that you change one little thing and boy, everything is different. Like we have a 5-year-old, so like you change anything prior to the day he was born, holy cow, it could mean you have a totally different baby. So I'm deep into sci-fi tropes. So that's a tough one for me. What I would say is, so generally speaking, where I am today and where life has taken us, and where we have the place we have earned in our life. I'm very happy with and very grateful for. And it's not just the stuff, it's the people, it's the relationships, it's, it's being able to reflect positively on experiences. And the question, the age old question is, what would happen if you didn't have some of those experiences? Would you be as successful? Like I credit my wife for being able to help the business make the right decisions, because like without her, it's like, man, I would have made all the wrong decisions out of fear and limited mindset, and just like I would have made the wrong decision. So I think the thing I'm most grateful for is to have my wife in my life. What would
No.
I what I do differently? I'll answer the question in a few different ways. What I'll say is, I think for anyone who wants to shortcut and learn from the mistakes I've made, there's a few. And I'll share those. So number one, we saw there was a period of time when we saw new business coming down the line, and I wasn't even thinking about hiring, partially because I felt like in the past new business was gonna come, and then it didn't come, and as a result, I didn't want to like pull money out of my family's pocket, because every dollar that you don't hire for someone, you save for yourself, let's say, or you save for runway for the business. But I didn't hire fast enough, and it caused a real mess. And then when we did hire, we tripled our staff over the course of a summer, and no one was happy. I
Ooh.
wasn't happy. There's a lot more work for me, which I thought was the weirdest thing. The people who we hired weren't happy, and clients were starting to get dissatisfied. So the clearing for that is standard operating procedure, and that was so key. And it took us 6 months to figure out like what the issue was. I talked to a former colleague. He says you don't have process; everything lives in your brain, and so therefore people don't know what their job is on a day-to-day basis. So I hired him. He became first our director of operations, and quickly became our chief operating officer. But here's kind of like why standard operating procedure is so powerful. It gives your people, your employees, the ability to understand when they're successful in their day-to-day job, because you have to start with the fundamental belief that everyone really wants to do a good job, unless you kind of like come across a bad actor or a psychopath or one of those types of people. They're out there, like a
Yeah.
sociopath or something. Like there are people with bad intent, but most people are, the vast majority of people have good intentions. So you want to make sure that they go home every day feeling good about the work that they're doing. You want to make sure that they go home every day understanding that they did a good job. And the way you do that is you set boundaries. You say, look, this is where your job starts, and this is where your job ends. And they can feel good about themselves day in and day out. It also creates peace, calm, and they can focus on their work rather than being worried about whether or not they're doing a good job. Those people start to stay with the business longer. You build tribal knowledge, you grow, you hire people. The people who are with you for a while now get to train the new people. It doesn't fall on the entrepreneur. There's more team members, they're doing better at work. The production of the work happens more effectively. Clients are happier. Clients stay with you longer. Clients renew. The business grows again. So standard operating procedure like was this really amazing thing. I never got out of bed any day in my life and said, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for standard operating procedure, until I found it. And I was like, I'm super pumped about this. Right? Because that's not why I got into business. But I am such a staunch advocate for it, because so basically the lesson that I would advise any entrepreneur is, whatever stage of the business you're at, start to write down the actual steps that need to be taken to complete like one type of task: the sales task, the follow-up task, any of the fulfillment work that you do. What does it mean to ship a product? Like, what are the 10 things you got to do to ship a product? That will make it very easy for you to then hire someone to actually do that work, and you can train them very quickly to understand your work so that you can focus on bigger challenges. And that's really, I think, one of the things I did not know. And as a result, I spent a lot of my time doing things that I wasn't my highest value work.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, I spent the first like 3 or 4 years of the business just completely swamped and like difficult. I was a difficult person, and there was never like I was doing like I didn't know how to do websites at the time. I was like trying to fix our website. I was more breaking the website than fixing it. Like I had one issue where cause I had multiple email addresses for kind of like for different clients, like and for different businesses, by the way, because they all had different names and different domains attached to them. And there was one time where my tech was so bad, I would send an email from like my consulting email address, and it would be delivered from my influencer email address. There's some issue. And it happened repeatedly. I was like, what in the world is this? And like at some point, it can feel overwhelming because there's never a shortage of things that need to be fixed for the business. And you're always like, okay, do I spend my time or do I spend my money? And at some point you got to spend the money to get it done so it's off your mental shelf.
Yeah.
And
So
and this idea of living life balanced and not sacrificing family time, that didn't exist. Like I was all in on the business, and it was really challenging for me. And I didn't enjoy that period of time.
yeah, that sounds really tough. And I totally agree on the systems and SOPs because I love my lists. I have a
Yeah.
system for everything. So I totally understand. And I think it makes total sense to have that system in place before you start the hiring process, right? So if you have your systems first and then you hire, then it's all so much easier to train the people from the get go. Now, what are some common mistakes that you see entrepreneurs make when it comes to marketing and advertising?
Yeah. So there's three common ones. The first one is very simple to understand. You're not hiring experts. Experts doesn't mean expensive. It just means experts. So, like, if you don't feel good, you're going to go to the doctor. You're not going to go to your cousin because they took a biology course in high school. If your car is broken down, you're not going to come to me because I'm just going to make it worse. You give me a hammer and a car, I'm going to break the car. You go to experts in all kinds of fields, legal, doctor, plumbers, mechanics, whatever the case is, because you know that you are going to make the problem worse if you don't go to them. And you want to save time. You don't want to learn how to like fix carburetor or something like that. Too many entrepreneurs don't apply that same approach to growing their business, which is
Yeah.
actually like crazy if you stop and really think about it. So the first is hire an expert. You're going to save tens of thousands of hours. I'm sorry, you're going to save probably thousands of hours, not tens of thousands, because at some point you're going to realize it's a bad mission. You're going to save thousands of hours, and you're going to save tens of thousands of dollars, if not more. Because every dollar that you put into an ad platform when you don't work with an expert, you're not actually using it to grow your business. You're using it to learn how to buy ads on that platform.
Mhm.
If you don't know what you're doing with Google Ads and you put $1,000 into it, that's your $1,000 course on how to use Google Ads.
Yeah.
And the same with all the platforms. Why is that the case? Number one, there's no actual clear definitive strategy. So this jumps into the next learning, which is strategy. You don't just spend money on advertising to spend money on advertising. You especially don't put money on boosts. You don't boost posts. You don't boost anything in any social platform. That's just a money grab from the platform to make you feel like you're doing well. When you have a strategy, it helps you make good investment decisions, and you can think of a strategy like a navigation plan. So if you're going from Los Angeles to New York, you have options, right? Like you can fly,
Mhm.
you can drive, you can take the train. Not advised, but you can take the train. So let's say you fly. Okay, which airport do you fly out of? Okay, you pick LAX. Okay, which flight and which time do you fly out of? Do you want the more expensive seat or the less expensive seat? So you've made a series of decisions that back you into going from Los Angeles to New York at a specific date.
Mm-hmm.
So the point of this is to say your strategy is that navigation plan. You start with the end point. You say, in a year or 5 years or whatever the timeline is, I want, and you have to have a timeline, I want X. I want more revenue. I want more headcount. I want more clients. I want more power and prestige. I want to be featured in a publication. There's some goal for you, which, by the way, also means you have to understand why you're doing this business. It's a whole different exercise. Why am I doing this? You're not doing this to get another job. Maybe you are. I started the business because I wanted to continue working in advertising and I wanted to make more money or a minimum amount of money, and I wanted a little more freedom. So you have to understand why you're doing this. That helps you set the end goal of your strategy, your destination. Then you work backwards to understand what you need to do today to get to that destination. Other things to consider for your strategy are the transformative value to your customer. Why is your customer buying from you? You need to understand your ideal customer profile. Like, how do you know when you're talking to your customer and when you're not talking to your customer? What are the data signals that come in? You need to look at your past marketing efforts. How have you grown so far? What's worked and what hasn't worked? What are the economics of your business? What does it cost to acquire a customer? What does it cost to, what's the lifetime value of a customer? All that information then gets paired with the insights from an expert that says, look, if you want X, you should run ads on Google and Meta. But if you want Y, you should run ads on LinkedIn or whatever the case is. So you need a strategy. And typically the strategy will be defined by an expert unless you're the expert in the room on advertising. And by the way, no one expects a business owner that's not in the advertising business to be an expert on advertising. Just like you wouldn't expect me to be an expert in fixing a car, being a plumber, import and export, or anything else. Real estate, crypto, none of that. I just do advertising. I stay in my lane. I do really well with that. No one expects you to be an expert in advertising on Google ads, on Facebook ads, on TikTok, all the rest of that, because you haven't spent 20 years doing that. You've spent 20 years doing something else, or 5 years or 10 years doing something else. The last point is something practical about advertising, something specific that you can do this week. And there's a link on our website that has this information. I can give you the link, Claudia, as well, so you can put it in the show notes or whatever the case is.
Sure.
And it's a 13-minute video, but I will in like 2 minutes give you the top line of this. So when you're running ads in Meta, now let me just caveat this. I am not here to specifically talk about Meta or Google or any other platform. We are advertising platform agnostic, which means we start with a strategy and we go where that strategy tells us. We do all the major and minor social platforms, search platforms, display, connected TV, all that stuff. But Google and Meta will represent 45% of all digital advertising spend in 2024. So those are the two big platforms. So let's talk about Meta. You do not want to do you do not want to do keywords or interests, lookalike, or retargeting in Meta. It doesn't want you to do that. And you don't have to take my word for it. Search for Performance 5, and it tells you that's Meta telling businesses how it wants to be used. So what do you do instead? You do broad targeting, age, gender, and location. Now let's look at location for a moment. We transact with companies all across the United States. So our broad location is across the United States. If you're a restaurant and people will travel 2 to 5 miles around your address, because no one's going to travel 50 miles for a hamburger when there's one like a few minutes down the road. So your radius around the address, your broad targeting, let's say, is 5 miles. So whatever the broadest is, people can work with you. And then the same for age and gender. For us, it's 25 to 65 because that's about the age of business people that work with us. Very broad. The reason this is broad and the reason this works is because Meta is really good at routing your ads to the individuals that are interested in your message. So then that means the best messages are going to be far more impactful for your advertising, which then means you need a creative testing framework. And the creative testing framework is a way to understand which ad is your most effective, and you do this monthly. So here's it's really easy to accomplish. Start with 5 ads. Commit to creating 5 ads a month. And 5 ads are comprised of, at the end of the creative process, you're going to have 5 headlines at the bottom, 5 images or video in the middle, and 5 primary text at the top. What you're going to do is disassemble all those and mix and match all the headlines, primary text, and images or video. And you can combine all those different elements in 125 possible ad variations.
Awesome.
But here's what you're going to do. You're not going to run ads on 125 different ads. It'll take too much time and too much money. It's just not a good steward of your investment. What you're going to do instead is use science, control and variable testing powered by Meta's algorithm to determine which single ad out of the 125 is the absolute best. And that's your all-star ad for the month. And what you'll find is that you're spending 70, 80% of your dollars on the best ads, and you are losing and moving aside all the ones that don't work. You do this for a few months, what you start to understand based on the ads that come back to you, if you know how to read them, is you understand the products and services, offers, discounts, and audiences that resonate for your business. And collectively, with the broad targeting and the creative testing, the collective result is you are training Meta to find your best customers by training the algorithm to find your best customers.
Interesting.
It's far more it's just easier to do. That's number one. It's far more effective, and it's the actual way that Meta wants you to use their platform.
Great tips. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Before we go deeper into all the strategy parts, can we go back to something you mentioned earlier? Because I just wanted to follow up on this. Because you said that the first few years when you started your business, they were just really, really tough, right? You didn't really have a work-life balance. How do you do this today? Do you have improved in this regard? And how do you prioritize health, relationships, and your happiness while also working on your business and growing your business?
Yeah. So I'll first start with the good. I really enjoy my work. There's no other business I want to be in. So my wife says this in both a positive and a negative way. She's like, this is your hobby too. So I enjoy the work. I enjoy the journey. It's not like every day I love it, but in aggregate, I love it. I don't like the bad days. I love the good days. But I really enjoy my craft. I really enjoy doing this work, and I really enjoy the magnitude of responsibility and being able to take on new and more challenging work as I see fit. So I really enjoy it. As a married man, I've learned a lot about compromise and partnerships and relationships. And yeah, I mean, I take cues from my wife. I would work all day, every day if I wasn't married. But if I wasn't married, I probably wouldn't have the successful business that I have, because she's helped me make really good decisions. So basically, it's constant communication with my wife. It's, I take her cues, like I don't eat often, so I'm kind of like unhealthy in that perspective. I don't exercise often. I need to get better at exercising, because I'm really engrossed in my work. And so what I'll say is, like, I make a good faith effort to get in the house around 6 or 7, have dinner with the family. Sometimes I'll go back to work. Sometimes I won't. I make time for our nighttime routine. But yeah, my wife would want me to work less.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you want a giraffe?
Yeah, I think it's the same with the business SOPs. If you don't set boundaries and if you don't have systems that keep your health in check, then life, your work could just take over and you
100%.
can become a workaholic. So let's get right back into it, into the strategy. So can you first maybe just define a couple of terms so that everyone is on the same page? So
Yeah.
what exactly is precision advertising and how is it different from traditional approaches?
Well, so traditional when the word traditional related to advertising can mean a few things. It can mean just like television, which is a $60 billion business in the US, which is kind of like declining. Radio, magazines, or print, which is almost gone, and standard out of home, which are not digital. So traditional generally means stuff that is like the old way of buying ads and maybe declining because there aren't that many consumers on it. But this idea of precision, remember, I'm not talking to my fellow advertising people. I'm talking to my end client. And I want there's actually nothing particularly different about it. It's just commonplace. Digital advertising is precision advertising. So
Oh,
I'm talking to the person. Like, one of the things I've learned over the years is like, I need to talk to the people who I want to sell, I want to buy from. I want to buy from who I want to sell to. Sorry.
mhm.
So as a result, I need to say things that are going to be relevant to them, and underscoring the fact that digital advertising is by default precision advertising is important for me. But the reality is, any strong practitioner of digital advertising knows that it's by its nature precision, because there's a lot of data, there's a lot of good algorithmic decisioning that helps advertisers reach their best audience and not waste their money.
Right. So it's all about targeting and data that you can analyze afterwards.
At the end of the day, it's a lot more boring, but we do the fundamentals really well. That's all you got to like. The fundamentals are just the most important thing. Like, so for example, I'll give you an example of not the fundamentals. Not the fundamentals are, there was a growth hack on X that may still be around, where you can get lots of ad impressions for like pennies or less than a penny. I was
Hmm.
like, all right, that's cool. That's interesting. It's a growth hack, but there's a few reasons why we don't focus on that. Number one, what works is the fundamentals. Number two, those types of things tend to go away real quickly, so you can't build a business on top of it. And number three, that's just one platform. We need access to the myriad of platforms that will work. What we do really well is the fundamentals, just the boring stuff. Like, the boring stuff is what actually grows businesses. It's like doing the same thing every day, getting 1% better every day. That's not interesting. It is to me, because I think it's approachable. Like, you don't have to win the lottery. You just have to get 1% better every day. You've improved 37 times over the course of a year.
Hmm.
So, but so I say scalable or precision advertising just to underscore that it's precision.
Right. Now, what is wide label media buying and who can benefit from it?
Yeah. So we have 3 different ideal customers. So the majority of our relationships are other agencies that use us to outsource their ad buying. So when I
Hmm.
say white label, it's literally like, from a manufacturing perspective. If you were going to manufacture, I don't know, soap or something, I'm looking for something that could be white labeled here, or like this stand.
Hmm.
Like, Walmart could ask to manufacture this and call it the Walmart stand or the Walmart soap or whatever the case is. It's literally the white label. For us, from a services perspective, it just means that there are creative agencies, general marketing firms, social media firms, strategy firms, influencer marketing firms that all want to offer ad buying, but they don't want to do it themselves because they've maybe tried and it hasn't worked out, or it's too expensive, or they just don't want to deal with all the intricacies of that. So they'll work with us. We are their partner to run ads, but to their clients, we're just part of the ad buying team for that business.
Okay.
Now, we also work with businesses directly who need help scaling and growing. And then finally, we have a course that helps people start and scale up agencies, because that's very interesting to me.
Gotcha. Now, we all know that things can change really, really quickly in the world of marketing, and things that used to work well suddenly stop working. So, what marketing and advertising strategies are working well for you and your clients right now, and which ones have just stopped performing?
Yeah, MySpace stopped a long time ago.
Good one.
We bought the first takeover on MySpace in like 2006 or something like that. I think it was for a movie called Lords of Dogtown. Anyway, so what's not working? Yeah, I mean, the big thing is, the most relevant thing I think for a lot of companies is going to be on Meta. You just shouldn't use the keyword or interest lookalike or retargeting options there. And the reason for that is because Meta isn't, from a product standpoint, they're really not supporting as much as they could be the keyword targeting. It's good technology, but they're not supporting it, so therefore it becomes sort of like bad technology. It's like using an iPhone from 2017. Like, it's fine, except there's way better options, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's number one. And when you do this broad targeting, what you end up doing is you're doing the keyword and interest lookalike and retargeting for you. That's all wrapped into the broad targeting that you're doing. And you'll know that the retargeting is working is because when you look at the frequency on Meta, you can see when a frequency is 1, 1.2, 1.5, 2, etc. So when the frequency is like 2, for example, the average number of times that people saw your ad is 2. Or if it's 1.2, you know that some small segment of your customers, of the people who saw your ads probably twice, or at least more than once, 2 times, 3 times, etc. That's retargeting.
Mm-hmm.
And you're using the power of their algorithm to get in front of your right people. Meta also knows when people are buying your competitors and when they're not buying your competitors. So if you're selling e-commerce, any e-commerce product, Meta will know when an individual goes to a cart but abandons cart, ends up not buying. So they're like, let's say I'm in market for, I have a few of these things actually. Like, let's say these 2 iPhone holders, right?
Mm-hmm.
Different use cases, but let's say if I'm in market for this, but I abandon cart, Meta is going to show me an ad for this and say, you didn't want this, maybe you want this. 2 completely different companies. And that's the power of using the broad targeting. So, going back to working with an expert, you're not going to know any of this, or really, I mean, you might find a YouTube video about it, or you might find like this video about it. But I think you typically want to work with an expert because these things change all the time, and you really want to understand what's working now, not what worked 2.5 years ago.
Very true. And it's so interesting that the broad targeting works better than the more specific targeting, because to someone who's not an expert, it seems like the more information you give Meta to work with, the more precise it should be.
Yeah, it's the opposite. The same thing is
Yeah.
happening on TikTok. The same thing is happening on Google. So like on Google, for example, you have Performance Max, where you give it a series of text, images, or video, and it's going to run ads anywhere it thinks it's going to find your customer, which opens up advertising to Gmail. It opens up advertising. So you can run in Gmail, YouTube, both video and discovery. You can run in banners on Google Ads, and you can run in search phrases for Google Ads. But that's the equivalent of the broad targeting on Meta, because you're just uploading stuff and it it picks where your ads can run. It can also run on YouTube television too, on
Mhm.
YouTube TV on your television. Sorry, let me rephrase that. It can run on YouTube on the television.
Mhm.
So you really have a vast array of screens. The same thing is happening on TikTok as well. You have, I think it's called smart performance campaigns, where you upload a series of, you place a pixel, it starts to understand who you're, the types of people that are buying from you. You upload a few videos with a few different types of texts, and it delivers out the ads to the right people. When you're doing traditional search advertising, like, for us, we're bidding on the term white label media buying,
Mhm.
or white label agency as well, I think. And when you go there, when you upload an ad, you're uploading 15 different headlines and 4 different descriptions. And Google is going to choose which headlines are going to be paired with which descriptions. And you can add call outs as well, other links to your websites, other credentials, etc., that will help persuade the person who sees the ad to click on it. So these are all ways that you're really giving up a lot of control to use the power of the algorithm. Part of the reason this is happening also, by the way, is because there's antitrust like stuff happening in the United States, right? So the antitrust stuff says a few things. Number one, these companies can't buy other companies. Like Facebook bought Instagram for $1 billion whenever it was in 2010, I
Mhm.
think, maybe, or 2012. And as a result, they can't buy other companies. But also there's a data privacy challenges, right? So basically, Facebook is coming under pressure, and has been for a long time, to like limit the amount of data that is being accessed by consumers. So in lieu of giving consumers more data, it says, we're just going to take it all behind a wall. You're going to set the algorithm to do the work for you, and we're going to do our magic to deliver the ads for you. So Google is doing the same thing, TikTok, Facebook. So there's a few reasons for that. It also kind of like works better, and it's far easier to use, which is kind of nice.
Sounds like a win-win.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience today?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that I really one of the most surprising like things that I wasn't expecting to get out of working in, starting this entrepreneurial journey is the focus on mindset.
Hmm.
Uh like 10 years into my business, I was in my mid 30s, or 10 years into the business, into the advertising industry, I was in my early to mid 30s. And this whole idea of mindset was such a, like, it came out of left field for me. But once I figured it out, not to say that I've ever figured it out, but like once I understood that this is a thing that I can pay attention to, I started listening and paying attention to people who were talking about it. And I find it exceptionally helpful. Things like the journey is going to take a lot longer and be far more expensive than you want it to be. That I I just read about Carol, what's her name? Carol Dweck, the person who,
Like a growth mindset?
yeah,
Yeah.
this idea of growth mindset and fixed mindset. And then like I understood that I've seen people in my life with a fixed mindset. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that person that said this phrase a lot. And I was like, oh, that's a fixed mindset. And I realized that I was very much a growth mindset person from very, very early on. And I think that's, I don't know, it's more self-reflective and interesting, but you start to see it in the types of people you work with. And I think that's also pretty cool.
Yeah, I totally agree. Those mindsets are really the lenses through which we see the world. So it also changes the experiences that we have. And this is something that I've always found like super, super fascinating.
Yeah.
So, last but not least, where can our listeners find you online if they would like to learn more about you or connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is brillmedia.co. B as in boy, RILL media.co. There's a start now button, and you can set a time to talk, and we'll have a conversation with me specifically about your marketing strategy.
Awesome. Robert, thank you so much for sharing your tips and insights with all of us today. This has been fun.
Thanks, Claudia.
Take care and talk soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Wired for Success podcast. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. That's a fantastic, easy, and zero-cost way to help the show grow. Just use the link in the show notes and make my day. Want more? For quick, actionable tips and insights to guided meditations and a side of biohacking, join my inner circle and get access to exclusive subscriber-only content. Again, just use the link in the show notes to join the tribe. Thank you for your support and see you on the other side. Take care and talk soon. Bye.